Hello, hello. My name is Clark Heron, aka the Hairy Hobo, and welcome to a brand new series called AKA Sports with Clark and Fletch. More on Fletch here in a second. But I wanted to start a new series, and you may have seen me from previous series like the Final Drive, the March Madness Prediction Show, and various other live streams that I've done on Facebook in the past. And after a year break of COVID, I've decided to come back into this realm. But I wanted to talk about more than just college football and college basketball. There's a lot more sports in this world, so let's talk about them. In order to do so, I'm gonna need a little bit of help, so we've decided to create this new series. We're gonna use the old series that we used to have, put them into segments of this new series, and we're gonna talk about a lot more sports. But again, for my help, I'm gonna need the man, the myth, the legend, simply known as Fletch. Fletch, how are you doing today?
I'm great, man. Amazing. How are you?
I am doing quite well. Thank you very much for co hosting this series with me. Just for the folks that haven't heard, don't know exactly who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself, what kind of sports you like to watch, ones that you like to cover, as well as maybe some of your favorite players you enjoy watching.
For sure, for sure. Well, Clark, first and foremost, man, thank you for having me on the show. I'm honored, ready to get this ball rolling, if you will. As far as me, big on basketball, whether that's college or pro. Also football, same way, college, pro. So some similarities there. Outside of that, I do get into the fighting scene a bit, some MMA, a little bit of boxing as well, and just kind of various other sports. Whatever big events are going on at the time, I'm always chimed in. So I got a big basketball background. Favorite team is the Lakers. Collegiately, I'm an Ohio State fan. Let's go Buckeyes. And my favorite player all time is the late great Kobe Bryant. So currently, no big favorites that stand out, but I do have some players I'm pretty fond of. So again, man, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome, awesome, and no, everybody absolutely loves Kobe. And in the background, as you can see, there's a little bit of a Kobe matting that's still in the process, and we'll be talking about them just a little bit later on. But for now, what we're going to be doing is a brand new series. Again, this is called AKA Sports with Clark and Fletch, and with this series, we're going to be doing different segments along the way, talking about major sports events, not just so much about teams or players themselves but also about different topics like the name, image, and likeness situation with the NCAA, trying to figure out exactly if the NCAA is actually worth having around at this point. We'll also be talking about other serious topics as well, maybe like a sports youth specialization issue that's been going on as well. But we'll also get into more of the comical side of things, and I think it's kind of turning into a little bit of a comical situation, the one we'll be talking about today. But first, let's get into some news and notes from the past week. And starting off, you got to start off with an NBA champion. The Milwaukee Bucks just this past Tuesday ended up winning in four straight to finish the series in six. Beating the Suns, they have won their first championship since 1971. The great Giannis leading all scorers with 50 to finally shut down the Suns in this series. Fletch, man, that how did the Suns go from 2-0 to just lose this series?
Hey man, you got to give it up to Giannis. That was a major big time performance from an up and coming great NBA talent. When I say up and coming, I mean in the all time scheme of things. Right now, he's definitely one of the top two or three guys in the game. But he just kind of put his foot on their neck and has definitely notched his belt with one of those rings that's well needed for his legacy moving forward. So that was the big difference. Giannis coming back off the injury and just filling it up and like you said, ending that game with the 50 piece. So shout out to him.
You're not wrong. Yeah, that definitely was a series that changed very quickly. What we kind of thought was going to end up being more of a home and home series ended up being the Bucks. But we'll talk about that series a little bit more in depth later into the main topic. For the next news and note, let's look at in the world of NFL. Unfortunately, big news out of the Los Angeles Rams camp. NFL analyst Tom Pelissero stated that Rams running back Cam Akers has torn his Achilles tendon and he will be gone for the 2021 season. Fletch, for a running back that was coming into potentially a huge year for him, this is not the type of injury that you wanted to see.
Not at all. Not at all. So kind of feel sad for the kid. I hope he bounces back. I saw he posted on Twitter. He's ready. He'll be ready to go next year. So we're definitely going to see. But this year was definitely lined up to be an out or breakout year for him, if you will. And I think that's something the Rams camp was looking forward to. Anybody that follows fantasy football was also looking forward to that as well. So prayers to him and hope for a speedy recovery.
Yes, absolutely. And in his stead, we'll have backup Daryl Henderson being the lead back in that field. You also have some unproven rookies behind him as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see if the Rams decide to go into the season not signing a free agent, potentially bringing back Todd Gurley, maybe even a Lev Bell could be out there as well, or they're just waiting for someone else's camp running back to be released and then they sign them as well. Fletch, just real quickly, any free agent that might kind of, tickle your fancy, I guess, as potentially a Rams signing just heading into the season.
Oh man, if I'm the Rams GM, I'm bringing Le'Veon Bell in at least for a workout. I mean, at this point, why not? You got Daryl Henderson, who I mean, you know you know what you're going to get out of him as of now, and you know you're going to hope for a little bit more. But at the same time, like you mentioned, unproven rookies behind him or free agent pickups. You do possibly have some upcoming waiver options from other teams as cuts are made throughout this training camp and preseason. So but the most talented back on the market right now has to be Le'Veon Bell.
Right. Yeah, and I would tend to agree with that. Todd Gurley would be out there. I know he's fairly young still, but the knees aren't like what they used to be. And then everything else out there is just veteran game, like a Frank Gore type scenario. So it'll be interesting to see what the Rams do heading into this season. Or now with Matthew Stafford at the helm, we could be looking at much more of a pass-happy team. Uh, it'll be interesting to see what happens in camp, hoping for no further injuries for sure. Uh, Next up on the list, what we have is, well, news out of Saints area. Mr. Michael Thomas, we all knew that last year he was dealing with a plethora of injuries. He was trying to push his way through last season, knowing that Drew Brees was going to be in his final season. May not been his best decision, so he comes into this year. He's not fully healthy. He goes into May, does some voluntary workouts, and nothing really gets reported. And then just here recently, all of a sudden, he had surgery back in June for a tendon in the inside part of his ankle. According to reports, he'll be out 12 to 16 weeks at this point. For fantasy wise, Fletch, that I mean, are you drafting him? Is this a player that you really want on your roster for the first potentially maybe 6 or 7 weeks without him?
A talent like Michael Thomas is very hard to pass up. You know what I mean? So that's one thing you're gonna have to watch closely is the quarterback battle. We got to see between Hill or Winston who's going to take that job. What was that Winston? If Winston takes that job, you know you're going to throw the ball a bit more. Taysom Hill, you got some legs, really athletic. That's somebody that you're not really going to bank on making a lot of throws. So I mean, you are drafting Mike Thomas still, I believe. Where you draft him will depend on who's at quarterback, in my opinion. I say right now, you said 12 to 16 weeks. We're expecting him to be back. We'll say October, November timeframe. So he may only miss a month of the season. Um, and with an extended schedule, you got an extra game in there. Definitely something to watch for. So hopefully they can kind of hold the fort down until he gets back, and then when he gets back into the fold for Saints fans, hopefully you got something special there. And for fantasy football fans, maybe not draft him where he is right now, which I believe is around the second or third round. In your 10 or 12 team leagues, you might want to look at him in the later rounds, maybe five, six, seven, add some additional depth, and see if you can get some help there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I would definitely be looking at leagues that definitely have a IR spot available so they can hold on to him. I don't know if I would really want to burn a bench slot holding on to Michael Thomas that long. The biggest question, and we'll have some more information before the season starts, is if the Saints will put him on the pup list. For right now, it's absolutely fine. He can easily come off the pup list anytime. But if he starts on the season on the pup list, that's the first 6 weeks he will be gone, guaranteed. And since the Saints have a week or have their bye in week 6, it may very well be week 7 or 8 before he actually comes back into the fold. Um, I guess for me, I agree with you. I would definitely want him to be more later in the fifth or sixth round, especially in redraft leagues. I would be looking at him as my fourth, maybe fifth best receiver off the board, just to make sure that I can withstand and actually win some games before he comes back into the fold. And exactly as you mentioned, it really depends on who the quarterback is. But with Michael Thomas out, we could be looking at Taysom Hill actually being more of the quarterback if they push more to the run game and the Alvin Kamara side, because Callaway, Traquan Smith, and Adam Troutman doesn't really get your blood boiling as fantasy options there in New Orleans. But more to come out of that camp. Finally, for the news and notes this week, well, just the ever revolving, changing, whatever you want to call it, door of the Aaron Rodgers saga. It is just recently reported that Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams both put on their Twitters a very similar image of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen fist bumping. A very cryptic message, kind of sounding like, whichever way Aaron Rodgers goes, Devontae Adams is going to go. Fletch, I think you've seen it. What is your take?
Yeah, it was a that was interesting. That was interesting. The Last Dance being put back on ESPN Plus. If you haven't seen it, check it out. That kind of it's a statement, if you will. I believe they're both in their last year of their contracts, if I'm not mistaken. I know Adams is. I believe Rogers is, and there's been talks about them wanting extensions, them wanting to get paid, and here you are in the last year of their deal, very similar to Jordan and Pippen in '98, and again, not really on par with management. I think that's something you got to watch. It's something you got to watch. I believe when Rodgers was dead set on sitting out, Adams mentioned about being traded to the Raiders, go play with his quarterback that he played in college with, Derek Carr at Fresno State, and that was tossed around a little bit. Then that kind of calmed down, and you had the contract discussions, and they couldn't agree to a deal. So here we are, man. It's a very sticky situation, if you will. First, it was Rodgers versus the Packers. Now it's your best quarterback or your quarterback and your best receiver against the Packers. So it's going to see how these next couple weeks unfold. Be very interesting.
Yeah, and with the news report coming out of Adams kind of shutting down extension talks before the season, it doesn't bode well for the Packers, at least at this very moment. I'm guessing what they're going to have to wait on, at least for Adams, is waiting on to see how the Rodgers plays out. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that Rodgers situation in our very next segment here. Who's right? It's a brand new segment. It's a segment where we're going to pretend to be one of these two. Fletch, for this week, I want you to pretend to be Aaron Rodgers. You're a millionaire. You're just came off of your vacation in Hawaii, so you're well tanned. You're doing very very well for yourself. Just recently got engaged. There are talks with obviously with Green Bay at this point that some reports are saying that you're looking for more money. There's some reports that you turned down a bunch of money. So what I want you to do is pretend that you're Aaron Rodgers and talk about your side of things and try to convince not only me, but all of our good old fashioned followers and fans that you are on the right side of things. As for me, I'll be talking with the Green Bay Packers organization and the GM and trying to convince everyone that actually Green Bay has done everything in the right way to make sure that not only the organization moves on, but we continue to try and want to win with Aaron Rodgers in the process. Um, so at this point, Fletch, the floor is yours. Aaron Rodgers, what is your case?
Well, It's been a long time coming at this point. I've been here 15 some odd years, fresh off an MVP season, and I mean, there's a plethora of things we could talk about. So I mean, we'll just list a few. We'll just discuss a few. First and foremost, there's really been a this thing where I guess I don't feel like I'm heard. I don't feel like I'm respected. I understand that as a general manager, the president, and you need to do things accordingly. But at the same time, here, the guys that run the show are the players. We're the ones out there every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, whatever day of the week we have to play nowadays, and we're out there performing at the highest level. And I understand compensation is here, and we'll figure that out. But nonetheless, you got to hear me out a little bit. There's been quite some time, really, since we drafted Devontae Adams. We haven't really drafted any top-notch help in the first couple rounds. You haven't really been taking my suggestions when it comes to play calling on the field. We all saw what happened last year in the NFC title game. We're down 8 points, and we decided to go and kick a field goal instead of giving me, Aaron Rodgers, a chance to go at least tie the game and put us in position to win, give the ball back to Brady, and we never saw it again. So it's twice now we've been an NFC title game back to back. I have a Super Bowl ring, fresh off an MVP season, and you know things aren't right. Things aren't right. We're winning games, but things with this whole situation and management, and I just don't feel respected here. So, for that reason, it's kind of where we are right now.
Okay. We understand. We fully get that you really want to respect. You want to be part of the decision making process, and that's exactly what we did at the very beginning. We came to you, we talked to you, we tried to figure out exactly not only your path going forward, but how can we as an organization move forward as well. And then there was an interview that was done on a golf course that was someone had asked you if you could potentially know exactly when you might want to retire or if you're getting close to the end of your career, and you said, quote, I can see the 18th green. And the moment that was said, it was news to us, which was a little concerning because we started this conversation in the first place. We wanted to make sure that we were always on the same page from the very get go. And now knowing that you could potentially retire in 2 years, that's a problem. We really needed to figure out exactly what we were going to do as an organization moving forward, especially if you're going about to retire. So what do we have to do? Well, we're going to trade up and we're going to go get Jordan Love. We're going to make sure that we have a decent quarterback or a quarterback of the potential future, someone that can learn behind you for the next couple years in case you are going to retire here soon. We also went out there and made sure we worked on the defense because of the last 2 years that you are here. The defense wasn't great. I mean, obviously, back in 2012, we got ran over by the 49ers in the playoff game. So we wanted to make sure that we could actually stop the run and stop the pass. So we've done a lot of good things on that end. I understand that you're wanting this high end receiver, but at the very beginning, you were also wanting paid as well. Well, I can't give you the same amount of money as a top end receiver and have the same amount of money left for anybody else. So, knowing that you have the ability, the inept ability to literally go out there and make all these really third, fourth, fifth round receivers end up being some super really good receivers, that's what you're good at, and we know it, and we keep winning games by doing so. So why on this planet would we go out there and try and trade or try and pay a Julio Jones, just for example, to bring him in when you can make an MVS look great, when you can make an Alan Lazard look great? Yeah, we took Jake Kumaro away from you. We understand that, and you didn't love that. But we also didn't love the fact that you didn't tell us that you could see the end of your end of your career coming. So there's a lot of things that maybe we really need to get back on the same page. We tried to. We offered you that huge extension to make you the highest paid quarterback this summer. You stuck up your nose to it. You continued to play off in Hawaii land over there, and then now, now we're thinking maybe it's not about the money. And then just not that long ago, there's another report, two reports that we're really confused about. Number one, you could potentially retire, which isn't super surprising since we've had this talk. But then the other one, you're wanting $45 million a year for the next 2 years. I, I, where are we? We just need just come into the office. We'll talk about it. We'll sit down. We'll get things figured out. Obviously, we're trying to avoid a mass situation here. We want you on this team. We declined any trades during the season or in the off season at this point, especially from the Raiders that really want you, as well as the Broncos. We turned them all down. We want you in Green Bay.
And I would love to stay. I really would, but it's going to take a bit more to make me stay here. I mean, I understand the reports are out. There's also reports about me retiring. And as far as being on the 18th green, I mean, essentially everyone knows my age, and you know how long players last. So the biggest issue, it really goes back to just not being respected. I feel like. I mean, you kind of mentioned you sent Jake Kumaro away. We can even go back a little further in time. Jordy Nelson and the quarterback coach that we had the previous season, they both were shipped out. And we're sitting here and was like, okay, let's get a replacement for Jordy. We got Devontae Adams on the uprise, but where's the other number two? Essentially, when you have a great offense, I understand I can make players better, but there are some players that are just more talented than I can make players better. That'd be disrespectful to a Julio Jones or, for instance, a Michael Thomas or any of those other great receivers that are out there. It's definitely going to take more guys to make this happen. You can take a look at the Chiefs situation. They got Travis Kelsey and Tyreek Hill out there. So, and not to mention, they had Sammy Watkins just up until this year and still got a young up and coming McCole Hardman. So, there's notable names at receiver for that team for also that quarterback, and for me to be on the same level as that guy and not have the pieces around me to perform to that next level to really get us into that Super Bowl talk. And we've been knocking on the door, but we got to get over the hump here. I mean, this is title town. We're not here for second place, third place, fourth place. We're here to win it all. We've done that once since I've been here. I like to do it again. So these are the things that I think would have to happen. And at this point, a lot of this stuff is just beyond repair. So I mean, for that reason, here we are, my last year of my contract. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might show up. I may not. I hate to get fined 50K every time I don't show up to a training camp, but at the same time, I have it and I may not show up. So the ball is in your court. Yeah, money's definitely something that will sway me a little bit, but keep in mind here we have all these underlying issues as well. So those are some things that I do want you to take in consideration. And until further notice, I'll probably be on my couch.
Understood. Well, just as a courtesy to what you've done to this organization, we're not worried about the 50K. Don't worry about that. But this report of you wanting $45 million, we're definitely going to have to sit on the table or sit around the table, figure out exactly what we want to do here. We just got to get the discussion going again. I think we can get back on this same page. We can figure out exactly how we can get back. And like you said, you want to win. You don't want to finish second. You want to be first, and so do we. So let's get back on the discussion table. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and throw up a poll to all of our fans so they can decide which one of us had a better discussion here today. And you'll be seeing that on Twitter as well as mainly just Twitter, I think. Fletch, is that what we're going to put it on?
Yeah, we could roll with Twitter. Great platform. We also have a Facebook page, YouTube page. Got you. Go check us out. We're everywhere right now. And Twitter, we'll go ahead and post a poll up sometime this afternoon, this evening, I should say, and let the followers take a stab at it. And we'll see who won.
Perfect. Well, just for the record, I think I won, but that's just for the record for now. Before we get to our main topic here today, let's thank our very generous sponsor, Legit Framing. Legit Framing is your one-stop shop to getting all that sports memorabilia framed. We all know you have it. You have a closet full of signed jerseys. Maybe you have some gloves. Maybe you have went out there and found some baseballs that were signed by some of your favorite players. Maybe have a football of Aaron Rodgers. Now, what we can do is we can go and frame these jerseys. As you can see on the screen, there's examples of a high school jersey being framed. Maybe you have a favorite baseball player, or maybe even a college football player, and you want these for your man and or woman cave. Well, Legit Framing is your source. Simply go to facebook.com/legitframing or send us an email at legitframing at hotmail.com. Let's talk about, we can put these in nice beautiful blackwood or Brazilian walnut frames. They're going to be double matted. They're going to have a nice styrene front. It comes with two-player photos, two-player or two-team logos, and we can frame just about anything at this point. So we've got jerseys, we can frame cards, we can frame photos, paintings. We've even done AstroTurf from the national championship game when Ohio State beat Oregon. Yes, AstroTurf. We have framed it. So again, if you've got some memorabilia that you want for your man or woman cave to get framed, to have it idolized, and just make everything look great, simply go to facebook.com/legitframing, your place to create your next conversation piece. And now for the main topic, Fletch. Well, it just recently, almost a week now, it finished up. We had the NBA Finals. We talked a little bit about it. Obviously, the Bucks ended up winning Game 6. They rattled off 4 straight wins to get their first title since 1971. Giannis was named Series MVP. Chris Middleton played buku great through Games 3 through 6. Uh, really, Fletch, the story seems to be more about the fall of Chris Paul yet again. Uh, really, where do you see? How did you see this series after Game 2? They went up 2-0, and then just what happened to Chris Paul?
Well, I hate to say it, but I mean, I think it's kind of a universal thing at this point. I believe that is correct. Um, he fell short. I don't know if the word choke is we're going to use that term or not, but we could definitely say he fell short of his expectations. Games 1 and 2 were great, especially game one. Um, Going into game three, you would expect very similar results from games one and game two. But essentially, what you saw is a little bit of adjustment by Milwaukee. The first thing I'm going to hit on is really the pick and roll defense. If everyone remembers, on TV, and if you just kind of pay attention a little bit to the pick and roll defense that Brooke Lopez was playing, you saw a lot of him dropping back into no man's land. You didn't see that against Chris Paul. You saw a lot more switching immediately, or guys like Drew Holiday and PJ Tucker not allowing the switch to happen. And if so, it wasn't as easy as it was before. You made him work a little bit more on offense. And then on the flip side, one thing that's overlooked is Drew Holiday. He shot terribly from the field. I'll be completely honest, but overall, he had a great series. Not just because of what he was able to do defensively, but essentially taking that many shots against Chris Paul is wearing him out. I mean, Drew Holiday had games where he shot, I want to say like 4 for 20 in game six. So it goes to prove that, putting some pressure on a guy and making him play both ways for the entire game can definitely wear a guy down and make things a little bit more difficult for him. And I think that's what happened to Chris Paul. You saw a really good play out of Devin Booker, but two back-to-back 40 games were, I wouldn't say a waste, but they didn't lead to any W's there. So that was the biggest adjustment of the series, along with going back home, getting some energy there in Milwaukee. The Deer District was on fire. I think it was 60,000 there for Game 6, plus the ones in the arena. So you're talking about maybe a total of 80,000 there in one epicenter. So it was it's definitely something to see. It's definitely something to see.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They definitely kept Chris Paul from actually really kind of running this team, what we saw in games 1 and 2, allowing the Suns to get up pretty quickly in this series. As for Giannis, adding yet another piece of hardware to his legacy, it kind of closes in his career pretty well. At this point, it's kind of cake. Do you see him being really his chances of being a Hall of Famer, just like a first ballot Hall of Famer, or do you think he needs to do just a little bit more just to get there?
Well, I mean, in my opinion, I think he's a for sure Hall of Famer. I guess that's based on what he's done up to this point. I feel like if he's done playing now, he should belong in the Hall of Fame. One thing I will mention about Giannis Antetokounmpo is that he stuck it out. Um, a lot of guys would have jumped ship. We've seen these guys jump ship before and go to a different team. It happens after their first contract, some after their second contract, or during their second contract, even. And there was a lot of talks that he was interested in leaving Milwaukee, at least from the reports, but he kept denying those, and we saw that was the truth. He wanted to stay, and he brought him a ring. As far as Hall of Fame goes, I did see probability chart, and I think it was around 67% probability for him making it to the Hall of Fame. So I mean, he's 26 years old. So, I mean, I think it's a safe bet to say if he can continue on the path that he's on now, we will see him in the Hall of Fame here in the future. So, shout out to him. And I'm willing to give Giannis his flowers while he's still here. He's young. Let's not wait and say, oh, what about LeBron? What about Durant? No, the time is now. The time is now. Two 40-point games, a 50-point game to close the series out, coming off of an injury where we thought he was done until maybe next year, December. That was a tough injury that he suffered. And, lo and behold, it was just a hyperextension. He bounced right back, goes to his strength and conditioning. So, he's also durable. There's a lot of positives that came out of this for Milwaukee, obviously, with winning the chip, but a lot more than usual, other than winning the chip. And this is a young team with a really good nucleus and a really good core and a coach who just proved himself. So,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This team definitely has a lot of talent, very young talent, heading into next year. Fletch, a real quick question on that young talent. What do you think their chances are of repeating and running it back?
well, I think the chances are at least good. I think next year the odds on favorite, I think we can all agree, would probably be the Brooklyn Nets if healthy. Out west, you have the Lakers and the Clippers that are going to get healthy, along with the possible Utah Jazz and Phoenix Suns, that your former number 1 and 2 seeds from this year's playoffs. But just looking at the Milwaukee team, you just won the championship without actually your starting shooting guard in Dante DiVincenzo. So bringing him back definitely gives you a little bit of spark. Moves Connaughton back into his role. It's kind of spreads the floor back out to where you have another shooter, another playmaker on the floor that you didn't have before. Not saying he's a great player, but DiVincenzo is a very good player that's very useful in a lot of situations. And I think they lost him at first, and it kind of hurt, and then you saw him rebound from that. But having him, in addition to bringing everyone back, re-signing PJ Tucker, making sure that Drew Holiday sticks around and guys of that nature, I think you'll see them be at least back in the fold next year. And I'm really, really looking forward to another Brooklyn and Milwaukee setup. Hopefully, they meet in the Eastern Conference Finals next year.
Yeah, and before we go just a little bit too far away from the finals, I know you and I were talking off air about some of the plus minus stats that you kind of had some interest in. For me, as an NBA a beginning fan, I guess you could say it's been quite a while since I really dug into it. Tell us a little bit about the plus minus, and then what kind of stats you saw from the NBA finals that really stuck out to you.
Yeah, for sure. So what I want to hit on really quick here is definitely going to be the plus minus stat. The plus minus stat essentially is going to calculate one's value in a sense in this matter, to where if he was on the floor for X amount of minutes, if his team net points were say +3, his plus minus stat would be +3, or if they lost 5 points while he was on the floor, then thus player would be -5 in the plus minus box. So I'm going to go ahead and start. We're just going to go through the series, man. And there's three players I want to look at, two in particular, but three in totality. And that's going to be Drew Holiday of the Milwaukee Bucks. And then on the Phoenix Suns, we have not only Chris Paul, but Devin Booker. If everyone remembers game one, Chris Paul had, I believe it was 32 points, nine assists. I apologize. And had a plus minus of actually +17. Devin Booker also had a +18. Both played pretty well. And on the flip side, Drew Holiday had a -16. That's kind of been the one matchup we, want to keep an eye on. A big physical point guard, defensive point guard versus Chris Paul, the point guard, if you will. So that's one that was game one. Game two, you saw a little bit of the same. Chris Paul had another good game, not as much scoring, but definitely held his own and brought in 23 points with 8 assists. Got some help from Devin Booker with a 30-point game. Chris Paul's plus minus +10, +9. I apologize. Devin Booker +10. Drew Holiday, little bit of a better game. If you remember, this one was a little closer. His plus minus was a -3. Now, this is when the series changed. This is when those adjustments that I mentioned earlier began to happen, where Drew Holiday was continuing to shoot the ball quite a bit. Chris Paul having to play defense. The pick and roll defense switched up just a bit as well. So you have the big game in Milwaukee, obviously a lot of momentum, and they had that huge second quarter to kind of put everything at bay for them, if you will. But Devin Booker had a negative 13, and we'll touch on Chris Paul with also a negative 13. Um, he did have 9 assists, but he also had 4 turnovers, which is not very Chris Paul like. And Drew Holiday had a whopping plus 22, which I believe was game high. 8 for 14 from the field, 9 assists. So that kind of shows you one of them has a big plus minus game, the other one has a not so big plus minus game. And that's just going into game 3. I'll quickly touch on games 3, 4, and 5. These were the ones that Chris Paul didn't do too hot in. And moving on to game 4, Chris Paul, negative 10. Again, 5 turnovers to just 7 assists. Another uncharacteristic game of his. And then Devin Booker poured in, I want to say, yeah, 42 points and actually had a plus minus of 0. That's major. He played 38 minutes. That means during those 38 minutes, the Phoenix Suns broke even. So you saw where the difference was. It's going to be in Chris Paul. And then what did Drew Holiday do? Plus 8. 4 for 20. One of those 4 for 20 games. But again, he shot the ball 20 times. Guess who has to defend that? Chris Paul. Moving on to game 5, the another close game, very close game. This is actually the most entertaining game of the series, if you remember, Clark. Lot of lead changes, if you will. Phoenix got out to a big first quarter. I think it was 37-21 in the first quarter. Milwaukee rebounded in the second and kind of kept their foot on the gas in the third. And then Phoenix had that big fourth quarter to get within. I want to say at one point they were within 2 or 3. Game may have actually been tied at one point as well, if I remember. And we'll go back to the plus minus stat here. Drew Holiday actually had an awesome game, 12 for 20 from the field, 27 points, 13 assists, and it was a plus 14. This was, if you remember, I think this was the big alley oop at the end of the game. And Chris Paul, 21 points, 11 assists, not too many turnovers, but here we go again. The -6 plus minus. It seems to be these guys cannot have a good plus minus game at the same time. And Drew Holiday again won this battle. Things in the box scores can deceive you a little bit. So this plus minus does help us kind of sort some things out. You would think that Chris Paul had a great game, 21 and 11, shot 60% from the field. However, he kind of lost the point guard battle, and Devin Booker had one of those 40-point games again. And guess what? Plus 12. So in 41 minutes, Devin Booker was plus 12. I don't know if we spoke too much about the plus minus stat after this game, but I did tell someone Devin Booker needs to play 48 minutes in game 6. And Cameron Payne needs a few more minutes to give Chris Paul some rest. I don't know how much that happened. Chris Paul had a great game. Devin Booker did not. So, not the guru I guess I claim to be, but at the same time, the Devin Booker plus minus stat is something to watch. And then the Chris Paul versus Drew Holiday was something to watch as well. And I think that was the biggest thing that you saw is that the point guard battle was ultimately won by Drew Holiday, in my opinion, especially games 3 through 5.
Right. And yeah, I was just looking at the game 6 as well, and just it's just crazy how the Suns got off to such a hot start, and as you mentioned, just a small little tweaks throughout the series and week or in games 3 through 5 just totally took the entire momentum away from the Suns, and they could
Hmm.
just never get it back. I mean, Aiton was just destroyed in that series, and in the series previously, he looked like he was going to be the next Charles Barkley, I guess you could say. But
David Robinson was thrown out there.
yeah, he was definitely like just crazy talented in those first series. And then I think it's a good experience factor for them. They're still super young. The biggest question, and I'll ask you about it. There's been some reports about Irvin Magic Johnson reaching out to potentially getting Chris Paul, bringing him into LA to make another big three out there for another title run, and to give
Mhm.
Chris Paul some kind of hardware at this point. Uh, for the Suns, obviously they don't want that to happen. For the Lakers, is Chris Paul the answer, or should they go elsewhere and find a next piece for them?
I think that's honestly a great pickup. I think it fits a lot of what the Lakers like to do. I think it takes some pressure off LeBron as a playmaker, where he doesn't have to be that as much. He can be, the threat that he can be off the ball as well, which I think we saw a lot of that in Miami. He played off the ball a bit, and also in Cleveland when you had Kyrie handling quite a bit as well. So I do like off the ball LeBron James, especially at this stage in his career where he's still, man, talk about prime. This has been a very long prime for LeBron James, but he is nearing the end of it. Let's be honest here. So I think that's something that to be on the lookout for. I do think Chris Paul's want to win a ring outweighs his want to get paid, which believes me to believe he very well may opt out and at least explore what he would like to do. There's some other teams apparently that could also use his services. And then the Lakers have some options as well. So we'll have to wait to see how those unfold. We've been hearing a little bit of rumbles that the Wizards are going to break things up and Russell Westbrook might be an option as well. So we'll have to see about that. As far as the Suns goes, we'll touch on that a little bit as well. I think you kind of expect a similar offense from them next year if they're able to keep their crew intact with Chris Paul. Do I expect them to be in the NBA Finals again next year, or even the Conference Finals again? Maybe not, but I do expect them to be a very good team. That I think they're. I don't know if it's a player on their team that they're waiting to develop, or somebody that they may have to go get, but I do think there is some guys on the roster that could develop into a guy that you would need down the road. That could be a Cameron Payne, a Cameron Johnson, a Michael Bridges, Jay Crowder. You know what you're going to get from him. I would want to keep him as well. He's kind of the one guy that seems to bounce around on a lot of great teams as of the last 4 or 5 years. So it'd be nice if he could find a home there in Phoenix, and he fits in great with their culture as well. So we'll see what's going to happen out of the Suns camp and over this off season and hope the best for Chris Paul. I think a few people were rooting for him to win a ring this year, and it just didn't happen. So sometimes you got to you know pull yourself out of a situation to go to a better situation in order to make that happen for yourself, especially at this stage in his career. I wouldn't be mad at it. I wouldn't be mad.
And speaking of next year, obviously we saw some teams that got to the playoffs last year that didn't quite make it there into the NBA Finals. Really, any of those teams in the playoffs, do you believe that can take that next step and vie for a championship next year?
Hey Clark, I'm glad you mentioned that. This year was a breath of fresh air. I just want to touch on that really quick. The fans came back. It was amazing to see. You got the energy. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I didn't go to any games, but I had my sound on 100 sound bar, TV, everything all the way up. I felt like I was in those cities. The Jazz were amazing. Their fans, the Warriors, as they try to push into the playoffs, were amazing. You saw the Suns, of course, and then you saw that Deer District up in Milwaukee. So it was very 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 good season outside of the injuries. Going into next year, some teams that made the playoffs that I'm looking to possibly make a push to kind of make a little bit more noise than they did last year. I think there's a couple teams that stand out for me, and I'm going to go move over to the East Coast first. So with the Eastern Conference, I do believe that you'll see a little bit more noise out of the New York Knicks. I think they're going to try to make some moves to try to get over the hump, if you will. They got stuck in the first round. I think they want to get out the first round. Obviously, the basketball culture in New York is huge. Drew Holiday, or excuse me, Julius Randle, my mistake, well, has really kind of evolved into this. I don't know. It's Draymond Green with the scoring touch, if you will, like as I like to call it. And you got R.J. Barrett had a great bounce back year after his rookie year, and you got some other guys around him that look pretty good as well. So I'm very excited to see what they do. Coach Tibbs is a great coach. Defensively, they look good. Reminiscence of that physical defense that they played in the 90s there in New York. So I'm excited to see what they do to kind of take a next step. And I saw some interest in moving up in the draft to kind of help build on some of that young talent that they have. So the scouting department's been doing a great job with some of those young guys. Out west, I'm really really looking forward to Golden State next year. No doubt about it. I feel like Golden State's really going to be a threat to win the championship this year. Jacob Myers and those guys are always looking to improve the team. That's why he shocked the world back about 5 years ago and picked up Kevin Durant. when everybody looked at Kevin Durant, like, what are you doing? Well, Golden State, they drafted all those guys on their team and had money to spend. So who do you spend it on? The best guy available, apparently. And you go win two back-to-back chips to add to the one you already won the year prior or 2 years prior. So I think they're going to make some moves this year to really bolster that lineup. You got Klay Thompson coming back in, who's behind Steph Curry, arguably the best shooter in the league. Draymond Green and Steph Curry's chemistry cannot be denied. And also what Draymond does defensively is very disruptive to a lot of teams and their game plan. So they were a playing game away from winning, from being at least the 7 or an 8 seed last year. So I am excited to see what they do this year, and I think the Western Conference really needs to be put on notice that Steph Curry and those guys are here to stay, and they're going to be able to make some noise for the next few years coming up. And we'll see what they do with these lottery picks. They have the seventh pick in the draft, and they have the 14th pick in the draft. And I think they're going to make some trades to bring in another star versus going for some young talent. These guys are ready to win.
Yeah, and on the flip side, is there any kind of teams that maybe made the playoffs this year that you feel like are they're going to take a step back next year and maybe miss out completely?
I'm going to go ahead and just drop a hot take here and say on the Eastern side of things, the Atlanta Hawks. I love Trey Young and the Atlanta Hawks. I love John Collins. Those guys can ball. Cam Reddish showed up in the playoffs after coming off an injury, so I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do for a full year. It was that Coach McMillan did an awesome job taking over. However, we have to remember they were fairly healthy. Clint Capella was fairly healthy. The other two stars that I mentioned were fairly healthy. You had a couple guys off the bench that they contributed very well. So going into this season, health was obviously a big thing, and they hit the East very hard. I mean, you had the Sixers, who they beat. Joel Embiid was not 100%, even though he did play a very good series. You had also the Brooklyn Nets, who I mean, they lost to Milwaukee on a wild, wild series with some great games by them both and all time performance head to head between Giannis and KD. So I mean, you got the Brooklyn Nets coming back. You assume with a healthy James Harden and a healthy Kyrie Irving that they're going to be the favorites, and I just don't see Atlanta being in the Eastern Conference Finals next year. I don't want to say they're not going to be a good team. I don't want to do that to them and say they're going to absolutely miss the playoffs, but I do think that it's kind of buyer beware. Do not expect these guys to be the number 4 team in the East again, and do not expect these guys to go to the conference finals again. As much as I love them, and I love to watch them play, they're a very, very young and exciting team. It's again buyer beware. There's other teams that are more talented that are going to show up next year and probably go ahead and take those top 4 seeds.
Yeah.
So I mean that goes in the East. The West, it's tough out there, man. I mean, you got teams 1 through virtually 11 next year to really look out for, from your this year's 1 seed in the Utah Jazz all the way down to the New Orleans Pelicans if they can make a couple adjustments and get it right over there. So the team that I'm really looking to possibly take a step back, and this is simply because it's partially of the unknown. It's going to be the Portland Trailblazers for me. You got a Chauncey Billups as your coach, who I mean, as a player, was awesome. You would think that he'd probably be a pretty decent coach as well, and has been an assistant for last few years now. I'd like him as a hire, but he's unproven. Terry Stotts at least was a consistent playoff coach. I understand you had to move on from him because things kind of got stagnant, and you want some new blood in there. Dame is not happy. We don't know if he really wants out or not at this point. He had the Nipsey Hussle quote that he dropped on us as soon as the season was over. How long does opportunity meet preparation? And it's like that tells me he's getting tired, man. He's ready to win. He got taste of the conference finals, I believe, 2 years ago when they beat the Nuggets in 7 and got swept by Golden State on the way to Golden State going to the finals that year with Durant and those guys. And yeah, it's been a slippery slope. I think was it 4 out of the last 5 years got bounced in the first round, and you don't know what they're going to do. If they're going to keep Dame, how do you build around him with no money? If you trade Dame, we're obviously putting this team back in the lottery. So I just don't see them being what are they this year, the 6th seed, and didn't have to worry about the playing tournament, which was great. They had a great push towards the end of the season. Dame at one point was an MVP candidate. You had Nurkic and McCullum missed a lot of games last year and they still were able to win 42 of their games. So if they keep the team intact, I mean, you can assume they'll be in the playoffs, but will they keep the team intact? That's the question. I don't think they will, and I think any kind of one of those setbacks will either prove very handsome in a reward or very risky, and you'll see them not make the playoffs next year. And I think that Dame will be further disgruntled if that happens. So
Yeah, and we could easily be seeing looking at Damian Lillard moving on from that team if things just can't continue to improve, especially towards, like you mentioned, him wanting to win now
mhm.
mentality. Uh, really, Fletch, we have covered quite a bit in this show. Any lasting thoughts from this last week of sports?
Yeah, well, we'll go to the minor things here. Everybody should tune into the Olympics. There's some great things going on there. You have the NBA draft coming up this week, so if you're an NBA junkie like myself, that's something to tune into. Got a little bit of college football rumbling, so just stay tuned. We'll touch on these topics a little later, and outside of that, man, just enjoy this summer of sports here. And baseball is also making its final push. So I'm really excited about this summer here and the way everything's going. And hopefully I don't know if everyone saw, but Team USA kind of took that L this morning to France. So behind a 27-point game from Evan Fournier of all players to I think that was the game high, and Kevin Durant fouled out with just 10 points. So there's something that needs to be done over there, and we're not sure, but hopefully our guys get it right in Tokyo and can bring home that gold again.
Yeah, it seems like the world has finally caught up, and we've seen that with the NBA having so much of a diverse player pool to go from all over the world, from Luca to Evan Fournier, who had a great game for France today. We'll see how Team USA responds. Also interested in many of the other unknown sports over there, like badminton or water polo. I mean, water polo is absolutely insane, treading water that entire time. Good luck is all I have to say for that sport. Well, Fletch, it has been a privilege and an honor for this first episode. I'm glad it went super smooth and super easy for us today. We'll be looking forward to next Sunday as our next episode. We'll be keeping everybody in touch over on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, various other social media platforms. As for
Hit
now,
that
my name,
subscribe button.
yes, yeah, hit that subscribe. Also, hit that bell. Let you know exactly when the next one's coming up, especially once we get into college football. We'll be talking about the college football playoff prediction show. We'll also be talking about the various topics about the Super League that is currently forming. Yes, I did say Super League, and we'll be getting into that next week as well. Again, Fletch, thank you very much for having joining us here today. My name is Clark, aka the Harry Hobo, and we're out.